And there we are. Once again, we're gathered on Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm Dave Williams, the host from findyournewnormal.com, and we're talking about, as we do every week, how to cope with cancer. And it's an interesting journey that cancer patients and survivors and caregivers go through. It's a journey right from the beginning of diagnosis into treatment and then post-treatment survivorship. And then we hope to move into a state of wellness and vitality. So every week I sort of play the role of the cancer patient. I'm a colon cancer patient, and look at the issue and theme of the day through the eyes of the patient. And I share the stage with a host that some of you are becoming very familiar with now, Hayley I. I love it. She calls herself a cancer recovery coach. She's also a cancer survivor, but she's the practitioner. She actually helps cancer patients move into survivorship and find wellness and vitality after while in their survivorship program. And of course, on the screen, you can see our guest, which we'll just announce in just a minute. But before we talk about our theme, I'll introduce you to Keri. You tell me it's good in Cleveland today.
Oh, Hayley.
See, I told you I was hyped up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful, sunny weather in Cleveland, so I'm very happy. It's been very cloudy, so everyone gets a little depressed here when it's like that. But yes, I am a cancer recovery coach. I'm a certified health coach, and I work with people who have finished treatment for cancer and have fear around recurrence. And I help them gain confidence that they'll remain healthy so they can fully live the joyful, vibrant life that's waiting for them. So I'm real excited to hear Keri, and I love the name of her company, Healing Boobies.
Isn't that
healingboobies.com.
Just
Great.
Amazing. Yeah, we're really lucky today because we've had so many great guests with us over the last few months. And today, Keri Chiappino is with us. Chiappino, I'll get it right eventually, who's really also a cancer survivor, but a chiropractor neurologist, which we've got to explore what the heck that's all about, and is out there helping breast cancer survivors deal with the issues that a breast cancer patient has to go through. And her tagline or mantra is "Get your happy back," and that's what caught my attention. And I wanted to bring Keri on, and we've been having a great chat over the last couple of weeks in anticipation of today. So welcome, Keri, and thanks for coming. We're really grateful that you've found time in that crazy schedule of yours to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
It is an amazing thing that you're doing, and you might begin by, we've got a growing audience, people coming all the time, to share with them a little bit of your background. And those of you who are watching, we tend to talk for a few minutes together as a group, and then we invite you to come on camera a little later so that you can interact directly with us and keep the topic moving along. Which is really, what's this healing process after breast cancer, and can you really get your happy back? So back to you, Keri. Tell us about you and the journey you've been on.
Sure. Back in 2012, I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. But the thing that was really striking about the diagnosis for me is I had struggled with infertility for about 8 years. And I was literally in my car on my way to pick up my adopted daughter to try to make it to her birth when I got my diagnosis. So it was the best of times and the worst of times all in 5 minutes. So that really, at that point, it seemed as if, how could this happen at this time? But really, looking back on it, I mean, she came into my life at the exact right time, of course. It was really divine. She was divinely placed into my life exactly at that moment. So you can look back on it with different eyes, certainly, than you do as you're going through it. But so that started, I had to have a bilateral mastectomy, 8 rounds of chemotherapy, also the ACT chemotherapy, which the good old red devil that people have heard and talked about. And then I found out that I was a BRCA1 patient also. So that changed the scene a little bit, of course, needing getting my ovaries removed and my uterus removed. So it was a long journey.
Yes, yeah.
And, my mother was a breast cancer survivor, but she had only needed a lumpectomy and a few rounds of radiation when she was diagnosed. So it was a totally different game when I got my diagnosis. She had already had her children. So that also changes the experience when you have young children as you're going through cancer treatments. But the thing that shocked me the most is here I am, a chiropractic neurologist, which basically what that means is I'm a chiropractor who has a specialty in the field of neurology. So I help people with neurological challenges get better through non-invasive modalities, things like neurofeedback. And I mention neurofeedback because I just want to get this out to everybody. If you have chemo brain, you need to check out neurofeedback. It's a non-invasive way to improve your brain function. And I will tell you, I treated myself throughout my chemotherapy, and chemo brain was something that I certainly experienced on some level. But, I actually took my board exams for neurofeedback while I was doing chemo. So I really got... How could you
possibly do that?
I know, that is me. So really check out if you have any neurofeedback practitioners near you, because it can be extremely helpful. In fact, Dana Farber finally came out and said, do neurofeedback for chemo brain. So that's something for everybody to consider. I think we lost Dave.
Oh, we did.
Oh,
yes.
We do that.
Let's get back in.
Yeah, okay. He knows part of this story already, so
okay.
Shall I continue here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think the biggest shock for me, and really what drove me to really dig deep in my own personal journey here, was that once I got the news that indeed I was cancer-free, I had a 95% chance of never having a reoccurrence. You're doing great. I, dotted all my I's and checked all my T's. I expected to walk out and be like, okay, I'm back, wait a second, hey, Dave.
He's coming. There he is.
So I had expected to feel fantastic once I got my news that I was in the clear, because let's face it, I'm one of the lucky ones who got that news. And when I left that day, I didn't feel good. I was like, what just happened to me? I don't feel better. If anything, I really felt like emotionally I felt worse, which I think is really common with us, us survivors. We kind of put on this game face, throughout our treatment, and we just muscle through it and do what we have to do. And there's not a whole lot of time to deal with the emotional side of it, because who can go down the rabbit hole? You're busy just trying to keep food down, so who has time for that? And so I think that's when it really hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh my goodness, I lost most of my female body parts. It challenged my femininity. It challenged my ability to be a mom, something that I was dying to become. And, I became a mom, and then it was difficult for me to hold my daughter, difficult for me to tend to her in the way that I had imagined. So with my own recovery, I just felt like, I need to figure out how I can get my happy back. And Dave, that's really how I came up with the tagline, because that's what I was chasing. How do I get that piece of me back? And so the journey began, the real journey for me, the real healing, which was really tackling these emotions that are associated with breast cancer, pre-diagnosis, during diagnosis, and post-diagnosis, and how I could process these emotions through myself. And, I did the normal things. I went to psychotherapy, which was always really helpful. I love my counselor. She really helped me along. And I even attended some local support groups, specifically of young women who had been going through breast cancer. But one of the things that I noticed is there's, I like to call it the spectrum of survivorship. There's some people who like to be defined by it. There's some people who like to talk to everybody about it. There's other people who prefer to keep it very private. And there's a lot of people that, unfortunately, I had found in this group that it just didn't resonate with me, that they wanted to stay in the hole. I call it the rabbit hole. They wanted to stay there. And I was constantly going to this meeting trying to throw them a rope. And they were like, I don't want that. Go with them. And so I would leave these groups and say, wait a second, I feel terrible. I felt worse when I walked in, worse when I left than when I walked in. And so that's why I decided that I needed to do my own individual work. And the individual work that I did was really taking a look at things like emotions. Oh, poor Dave. We lost him again.
We lost him again.
Louise Hay has some really excellent work where she talks specifically about how certain emotions are linked with, cancer, the physical manifestation of cancer. And this is an interesting concept because when I had spoken, of course, with my holistic background, this is something that I was quite used to looking at. If I had a sore throat, I would look it up in the book and say, oh, I don't want to communicate something. Oh, yeah, I don't want to tell my husband that. And then, so it was just an entirely different way of looking at the physical and the emotional connection. And with cancer, some of the things that are correlated are things like a deep grief. Resentments is another big one that shows up. Carrying around hatreds. And it could be hatred to yourself too, it's not necessarily that you're a hateful person or anything like that. Yeah. Also with breast cancer, breast specifically is about over mothering, giving, and not necessarily being the easiest receivers. Hi, Dave.
You're back.
Not necessarily being the best receivers, and just acknowledging in my own life where this rang true. I was in such deep grief for years of dealing with infertility. So, and the other piece for me is one of my little subspecialties is treating pregnant women. So, and helping them manifest pregnancies. So, even though I would love to say that I'm so evolved that I didn't have any resentments when someone would come in and say they were pregnant, because that's what I was working towards, there was still that little piece of me that was like, I seem to be able to do it for everybody else but myself. So that was, definitely a resentment that I needed to work on. And as I started working on these locked in emotions, I was able to break free of really the emotional grip that cancer was holding on me. And modalities that I teach are things like meditation, things like emotional freedom technique, which is phenomenal for all sorts of challenges, and journaling, trying to find where in your past these kinds of things might ring true and how to find the silver lining in it all. And, I'm very careful. I don't call it a gift. Some days I don't feel like it was a gift at all. But where can I find that piece of gratitude, in every day? Where can you find that silver lining? And so creating a gratitude practice is a big part of what I teach. Because if you spend your whole day looking for something that you have to write down at the end of the day of something you're grateful for, it shifts everything. And if you can shift the way you're thinking all day, you're going to be healthier. That's the bottom line. So
Well, that's one heck of a story. And
Yes.
and I kept fading in and out. It was such a great story. It kept blowing up my computer.
Yeah, I mean, I know there must have been so many emotions because one, you couldn't get pregnant, and two, you were grieving the loss of your body parts. So, I could relate because I had ovarian cancer, and so I had a total hysterectomy, and I did have one child, but we were trying to have a second, and that was huge. When I was finished with treatment, the oncologist, similar to you, oh, you're cancer-free, great. And I felt like I should be celebrating. And I felt nothing like that. I just was apprehensive, worried about recurrence, just didn't feel right in my body. Just something felt off balance. So I think, cancer is definitely a teacher. And I love what you're doing because it's so important. I think we don't realize, and oncologists for sure don't deal with the emotional aspect. And mine was 18 years ago, so there was none of the mind-body connection back then. So I'm curious though. Now, are you finding that more people are getting help with that? In the conventional model, or still really not at all?
You know what? I think, they are getting help as far as their counseling and support groups. So I think really the help you're getting is just dependent on who's in that support group. But I will tell you for myself that, sometimes the mind-body connection is something that people like to distance themselves from. I've had some reaction from actually a dear friend of mine who said, I can't believe that you think that those two things are related. I feel bad for you that you would think those things are related. And I thought about it and I thought, well, when somebody's on Wall Street and they're, one of those traders on the floor and they have a heart attack, everybody goes, it's the stress, and that's acceptable. But why isn't this acceptable? So that's just a different, it's just another example. Because I don't want people to feel like it's a judgment. It's not a judgment. I don't feel that, these things necessarily were the only thing. If I would have not had a resentment, I wouldn't have had cancer. I don't believe that. I feel like these are all teaching tools. And ultimately, when we work on physically being healthy, I feel like we also have to shift our focus on being emotionally healthy, because it's not okay to stuff this stuff. And I don't know what your experience has been, but I know for me, as I was going through the sadness and the anxiety of fear of reoccurrence, the oncology world was offering me their share of medication, and that was the answer. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think it's different for everybody. It's a very personal decision. But what I noticed is that a lot of these people were on these medications that are so difficult to get off of, like Xanax or, whatever. And they seemed just as anxious as I was. So I was like, I'll take that if they seem better, but they seem just as anxious. So that's what led me to say, you know what, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way around this stuff. And I shouldn't say around, because it's through it. It's not around it. But, and certainly, that was my truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, with a private practice, you have a one-on-one focus, but but you decided that you could also help women in the group setting. And the Healing Boobies program allows people to participate with video and workbooks and participate in a discussion group on Facebook. What made you start to think that a group format would be acceptable rather than just face-to-face private practice work?
That's a great question, Dave. Honestly, I have breast cancer survivors in my office that I see for chiropractic care. And what had happened is I had a few conversations with some survivors where they came in and said very similar things that I was thinking. Like, yeah, he said I was good. I'm not happy. Am I nuts? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're certifiable. And I was was like, no, you're not nuts. That's exactly where I am. And I just felt, one day I was driving into my New York City practice, and I just said, you know what, this is just such a need. And, my patients expressed, how come there isn't this out there? If I didn't come, they were coming in to talk to me instead of getting adjustments. They said, why isn't this out there? And I said, that's a good question. And I just felt like at that point, something clicked in me. And I said, I need to develop something. I need to put this down exactly step by step, what I did, what I have done, and to see if it helps others. So that's when I decided to take the next step and create the course.
And it seems to be successful. I looked at the group, and you got 1,200 women in that group. So there is a large number of people who feel that approach is acceptable. And it interests me because it's not something you would expect to come from a chiropractor. I mean, the fact that you're also the neurologist moves a little bit more, but you're used to cracking bones, making physical adjustments. Now you're making mental adjustments. So, I'm saying, well, that's interesting. Do you think you do things differently than other practitioners who are involved with EFT and meditation and affirmation work and so forth? Do you have a special set of tools that you take out of your toolkit?
Well, I think it's really putting it all together. So for me, working with people for all these years, I've learned, what's worked and what hasn't worked as far as guiding people along a journey. Because I can give anybody these tools, but that doesn't mean they're going to know how to use them. And that doesn't mean they're going to sit down and practice them. I'm also a yoga teacher. So that is something that I've done. And that's really helped me on this journey, is just getting on my mat and letting it all out, really. So that is definitely a big piece of the puzzle for me. And, I feel like knowledge is power, sure, but really teaching people how to do the practice is what really, really makes the difference.
And that's a good question to put out to our audience. Don't forget, you can text chat along the side. Some of you are just watching, but just come on in and leave a question in the text chat to the right of the screen, and we'll see it, and just put a /Q and then leave a space, put your question in, it'll come up, and the three of us can look at it and respond to it. And in just a couple of seconds, those of you who want to come on camera, we'll invite you on to ask Keri your particular question. Because the big question that's going through my head is, I know on your site and your material, you have you are a fan of Louise Hay. And
yes.
I think that's a person that has some note, but not some, maybe there are people in the audience who don't really understand what she's been doing in helping people. Perhaps you could share a little bit about why you're a fan of Louise Hay and what you do with her book and material and incorporate it into your program.
Yeah, we shared a little bit of this, Dave, when you went out.
Oh, dear. So you know. There you go. Tell us about Louise Hay.
Yeah, so with Louise Hay, again, that is that mind-body connection, and it goes through different conditions or different physical conditions have a mental or emotional relationship to those physical conditions. So again, cancer was specifically resentment, grief, carrying around hatreds, and that's why that grief and resentment really resonated with me. And breast problems was specifically over-mothering, doing too much, giving out, giving away your power, and not the best receivers. And that is so common. It's such a common thread among breast cancer survivors, for sure. I don't know about other survivors, but that we tend to give, and we're not too good about receiving. And certainly the Big C gives us an opportunity to do something different there and receive. And so just acknowledgement of, this is huge. I have women actually start off by doing, I call it your boobie story. and it's basically, what is your relationship with your breasts, growing up, through puberty, through adulthood, through your partner, what is your relationship there? Is there any grief around that? Is there any resentment around that? when you look at the left side of your body and the right side of your body, specifically with breast cancer, we can get specific. The right side of our body is our masculine body, our masculine. So if you had breast cancer on the right side, could that mean that you might have a challenge with a male figure in your life? Is that something you needed to work out? For me, my breast cancer was on my left side, and the left side is the mothering. And was a pretty amazing story is that my breast radiologist was actually my best friend. And when she did my mammo, she said, there's something on here. I think it's nothing, but let's just do a biopsy just in case. And I'll do it right now if you'd like, just to get it over with. I said, yeah. So she did the biopsy, and, again, we know the news, but what she said that I thought was really, really striking is that she said, typically breast cancer on a mammogram will look a little jagged, will have kind of a sharpness to it. And mine was bubbly. And she said, I didn't think it was cancer because it was bubbly. And she said, I wonder if it's that over mothering energy. It was like, I didn't have a child. I had this bubbling of wanting to be a mother so bad that it was just overgrown and had no place to go. So I thought that was another crazy way of looking at this whole thing. So.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, it's so interesting. So interesting. And do you find that people aren't so willing to talk about their emotions? I know it's such an important part of the cancer experience, and people often bury their emotions. They don't want to think about it. How do you see that in your practice, and how do you handle that sort of thing?
I think just getting them to, I think one of the things that really helps is when I can talk to them and say, can you think of anything that maybe you had a resentment towards, or they might be a little shy about it, but I think there's a curiosity about it. I mean, the women who are attracted to me and my program are women who really want to get to the bottom of this and get beyond it. So it's, it's like anything else, right? That's why they make different colored shirts, my father would say, different strokes for different folks. But certainly, when we start talking about the correlation between the emotions and the physical manifestation, people that, understand it. And although it might be difficult, and it's interesting, I have my course is available for you to do it on your own, like a do-it-yourself version, where you can just go module by module, and they will have access to me in a Facebook group. But typically, people like more of the one-on-one. And I think the one-on-one really is important for a lot of people because I get to walk them through it step by step. So, these things can be difficult to muck through, but if you don't feel good and you want to get better, they're going to be able to go through it. It's just the way to the end, the way through it. So.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And how long do you have this program in place?
It's 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah,
have you seen really good results? I'm assuming.
Yes. I did beta testing prior to, so I've had I've been able to tweak it. I've been able to get good feedback from other women. And people are happy with it. It's really taking them step by step and getting through, all the stuff that we kind of have stuffed down over the years.
Yeah. I mean, with cancer, there's so many components. It's not just one. I think that the emotional component is something people don't often think about. They think about, the nutrition, what to eat, and definitely stress management, and maybe that's a component. I'm not sure. Is that a component
Yes.
of your program as well? Because
the way the program is laid out is the first week we really discuss what everybody's background is, what their story is, how new they are to survivorship, because that can be important too. In week 2, we really start to dive into the gratitude practice and where we can find, what I like to call silver linings. And in week 3 is when I start introducing the tools of meditation and EFT, really teaching them how to deal with anxiety, fear reoccurrence, depression, lack of sleep, stress, pain. And then in week 4, I actually introduce them to different modalities that are available on our journey. One of the things that we've spoken about is, a lot of survivors don't necessarily ask for help. They don't, they have difficulty with that. And so I introduce them to modalities that are available, things like chiropractic, Reiki, cranial sacral therapy, acupuncture. And I discuss the other modalities, and their homework is actually to go do one of those things, which is great because people are like, oh, I have to get a massage. I'm like, yep, you have to get a massage.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I think that, go ahead.
Week 5, we go through the survivor. I have a little quiz to determine where you are on the spectrum of survivorship. And what I mean by that is everybody, and there's no right or wrong, but you have women who would love to wear pink ribbons, and they're walking the walks, they're grabbing teams, they're making t-shirts, and then you have other women who don't even want you to say the word. And so really determining where you are is important, because you need to come into your own power and share that with others, your family and friends. Because if you don't, you end up putting yourself in a situation where you're likely to get more resentments. Why is that? If I'm somebody who doesn't want you to even mention the big C, and you buy me a Hallmark Christmas ornament of a pink ribbon, I'm going to be resentful. And so, but that's not their fault. They're trying to help, right? It's my responsibility to educate the people around me how, what my survivorship is like, what I want, what's acceptable and what's not. And then in week 6, I talk about really paying it forward. It's about getting out of your own head and helping somebody else. Because when you're looking to help somebody else all day long, whether that's holding a door open, I'm not talking about hours of helping somebody clean out their closet. I'm just saying, bringing somebody a cup of coffee in the morning, letting someone ahead of you in traffic. Just those random acts of kindness will make you feel good. And if you feel good, your body's going to help. And so the course is really meant to be repeated. I like to say, lather, rinse, repeat. So you do one level of it and you get to a certain point, and then you can put it down and go back to it, 6 months later, and have a different response and discover new things. So that's the evolution of it.
It sounds great. It really does.
Yeah.
And, I think for women, self-care is just such a difficult thing because we're so used to taking care of everyone else. Mm-hmm. And we feel guilty about taking care of ourselves. So you have some kind of accountability for taking care of yourself.
Exactly. That accountability is doing meditations, doing EFT, getting massages. There are accountability steps along the way. And that's why I think the course is really powerful in a group or a one-to-one format, because I'm able to make sure that they're being accountable to themselves.
That's great. That's great. And what about the EFT? I'm familiar with it, and I use it a lot too. And I think it's such an amazing tool. But just maybe explain what that is to the audience, because a lot of people might not know it.
Sure. So EFT is emotional freedom technique, and it's the tapping technique. And the tapping technique is basically tapping on certain meridians in your body, and it helps to process emotions out. So, for example, if you have a lot of anxiety one day, you would tap about how you feel. And we start with what we call the setup round. And so basically it allows you to say all the things you are dying to say, but you're afraid to even think. I don't know if we have any law of attraction people, but that's another thing that I teach in the course, where, what you think about, you bring about. And so this can be a little tricky for me, because when I fear, reoccurrence, which of course happens to everybody some days, especially on the days you have to go back for your checkup, you know, these emotions can get locked in your body. And you know, with law of attraction, my challenge always was I can't say I'm scared because I'm going to bring more scariness. So I would try to like push it away. And so EFT actually gives you the opportunity to say all the scary things. So you start off and you say, you know, even though I am so scared that I'm going to get cancer again, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, as I'm tapping on different parts of my body. And after you say the things that you really are scared to say, then you start putting positive affirmations into your system by tapping on certain points. And this is a way to really erase the negative and increase the positive. And the results of EFT aren't in an hour. They aren't in 2 hours. They're right then and there. So I like to consider it first aid. So that's one of the things I use in my course is I have specific scripts for people to follow along with me. EFT for anxiety, for guilt, for depression, fear of reoccurrence, just a few.
Yeah, that's fabulous, fabulous. I'm going to put I don't know if they put your website in there yet, but I will do that. It's healingboobies.com, right?
Yes, it is. And I have a free video series for those people who would like to learn a little bit more without actually joining the course. So if they put their name and email into the website, they will start getting a free 4-part video series from me to give them a little taste of what Healing Boobies is all about.
Wonderful, wonderful. And since Dave is not here, I cannot get people to, I mean, I'm hoping if people have questions, they will ask, but we do need him for some of this. So, you know, I will ask you a couple more questions and we'll see if he comes back on. I can't get anyone onto the seat without him, but people can still ask questions in the chat room. So please feel free. You know, while we have Keri here, it would be great to ask some questions, to ask her some questions while we have her. You know, I was going to ask you about belief systems, about unconscious beliefs, because, you know, we have so many beliefs from our parents growing up that we, you know, we never even really thought about. Is that something that you bring out in the program and with people when you work one-on-one, just limiting beliefs and things that were programmed from years and years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, I always try to hear what people are actually saying, the words that they use every day. I mean, and these kinds of beliefs really permeate. I mean, we were having a group call not too long ago, and, you know, one of the sweetest woman that was on there was talking and just saying, well, you know, I shouldn't be so tired. I feel guilty about being tired. I feel guilty about this. And it's like, where does that come from? Did anybody ever say that to you? And, you know, I'm sure that has come from somewhere, right? And so if we can just dive into how to clear that belief, hopefully over time, you'll become more aware of what's bringing you down or what those voices are. And I don't know if you have any experience with meditation, but those voices become loud and clear the minute you start meditating. So even if you're not aware of your limiting beliefs, over time with meditation and getting deeper and deeper, you become very aware of what's holding you back. So journaling is a big part of this. You know, I had spoken about writing the booby story. You know, once you read that booby story and your relationship, I ask about your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your father, especially left side versus right-sided breast cancer. And we find all sorts of little nuggets in that journal that we can work on. So yes, absolutely, a big part of it.
That's wonderful. Great. Yeah. You know, I think that this has just been a fabulous 45 minutes, and I'm so happy that you were here. I feel terrible that Dave is having problems getting on. This is the first time I've seen that happen, but you know, there will be a recording, so people will be able to hear the recording. And, you know, again, if you have any questions for Keri, please ask.
It looks like Dave
we're
might be
here.
trying to come back right now. I see his little picture.
Do you see something? Because, I don't actually.
His picture just popped up on the top on my.
Oh, now I see it. Oh, is that him?
That's me.
Are you here?
Fine.
Well, you're having trouble today.
The Blab wouldn't allow me to connect. The CDN from Canada was down.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a good thing we're international. I couldn't cross the border. I didn't have my visa.
We've had a wonderful conversation, and I was just
have to watch the replay.
I know.
Did we invite any guests in? Did anyone come in and talk? I saw that Barb was here and Michael was here. And did any of them come on camera?
No, but is that something, because I've never done that, so I didn't know if it was something you had to do to get people on camera. Or they
the seat should be open. So
mine says lock seat. What on my screen?
Yeah, just say to lock the seat, but if it's unlocked, so it should be
it is
flashing
unlocked
for people out there.
I did ask people to, ask questions, but so far no takers.
Yeah. No one had any interesting questions? Well, that cannot be. There's just so many good things to talk about. Did we get into talking about the actual Healing Booby program, the details of it, and how people can register for it so that they can be part of the Facebook group?
We talked about the website, and I also mentioned the free video series, but I also do have a community, a Facebook private community. It's Healing Boobies is the name of the Facebook group. And if you request access, I can take a look at that and allow you in. And that is a closed private group for just survivors. So it's one of those groups that if you post in there, it will not be on your news feed unless, of course, a friend is in the group also. So yes.
And one of the things that you and I had talked about, and again, because I was gone, did you talk about how you involve the significant other in the program, how the male component is there to help through the issues?
We didn't talk about that, Dave. That's
why I'm here. You see, I knew there had to be something I could ask.
So, my husband, of course, has been on this journey with me, and my husband and I have certainly come up with some ways to really help establish that intimacy again, in relationship, and not necessarily just in the physical body. But, certainly having that connection within the Facebook group is something that we talk about frequently, the intimacy challenges that come along, because a lot of us have been sort of forced into menopause, which comes with a whole myriad of challenges, shall we say. So that's something that we address within the Facebook group too.
And I know there are exercises that you ask the people to work through. Does the male help through on those exercises, or is there a component for their input?
Not all the time. I actually do more one-on-one with the women because I find that it starts with them. And if they can clear that muck, as I like to call it, then it can certainly deepen their relationships with their spouse. But that's something that I would love to, ultimately, my next step would be to create a program for specifically the spouses that my husband would help me develop, because I feel like, sometimes they just don't know what to say, what to do, how to support us. And ultimately, if we can help them along, that makes a huge difference. So I'm hoping to get support for caregivers soon.
And I think there's got to be issues that are arise that that the male needs help on? I mean, I know you're concentrating on the female perspective and what they're having to deal with, but if you really care about your mate, I'm sure there's a whole set of emotional issues that the male would like to walk through. And is there a way that you direct them to some external help, even though it doesn't happen in your group? What do you do when the female is saying, "Hey, my significant other has got some issues. What can we do to help him deal with what I'm going through?"
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. At this point, I don't have a specific resource for them besides meditations that I'm creating. But ultimately, my husband and I had spoken about doing something, specifically so that women and men, even if it was in this kind of format, in a blab format, where we could sit down and have a show and help others, through the relationship piece of recovery.
How about your EFT tool set? Couldn't the male learn how tapping actually is going to, help them through? Did you guys discuss EFT and acupuncture? And
we did.
So it would be something the male could learn as easily as the woman. Absolutely.
And I have videos, so really, anybody could use those videos, even sisters and mothers, and absolutely.
So the whole caregiver side you address. I mean, because I just see this as a very complex issue. I mean, there are so many relationship issues that are going to be triggers. There are going to be body image issues that are triggers. There are male issues of dealing with the different femininity that now exists in their world. It's just so complex, and that's what excited me about what you were doing. And I almost saw what you were working with as the first step, that there was a way of getting it started and getting the community involved, but then it would grow and develop so that the other issues would be addressed in some way. Is that part of your future plan?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to do that. My husband and I had a lengthy conversation about it not too long ago. And it's something that we're both really passionate about, because my husband also is a chiropractic neurologist. So and also certified neurofeedback. And he's also a meditation practitioner. So, we have similar backgrounds, and, we've been through this together. And unfortunately, cancer really drags families apart. And so we've managed to keep it together and keep our relationship good. And we'd like to share, our path on that and how we got through it.
Well, there you go. I knew I had something to contribute.
Always.
Well, not if I'm not connected on the internet. Can't do much. I mean, barred at the border. I mean, this is not very good. It was funny because I got the lab. I am rocket up. Sorry, yeah, we can't connect. We can't get into the next CDN server. I'm saying, my goodness, there's something happening at the border.
Right.
And
I just want to say that on the live chat, Trina actually posted the link for their Facebook group. Thank you, Trina, for people if they'd like to join the Facebook group.
Is Trina shy, or could she come on camera and say something to us all?
Oh, I don't know. That'd be up to Trina.
I know. I'm just throwing that out there, Trina. We'd love to. Well, she said she'll come on. Hey, great. We will get a call.
Good.
So let's see if Trina can support the discussion that we've got going, and hopefully her technology will connect. This is be fun. See what happens.
It's trying.
It's trying.
There I am.
Aha! Yay!
Hi.
Hi, Trina.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to
What
meet
part of the
you.
world are you in?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, Canadian! Yay! We got through together to cross the border. It's
Yeah.
great.
It's been a wonderful conversation, everybody. Thank you very much.
Well, that's what we like to do, and it's very casual, as you could tell. It's very friendly, and it seemed to be a good topic. And I assume that you've been working through the Healing Boobies program.
I am currently taking the Healing Boobies program right now. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, it brings you awareness of things that you really didn't connect together. So makes you think. It's great. Yeah. Yeah, she did an amazing job on putting it all together.
Have you taken other programs similar, or is this something new for you?
This is something new for me. Yeah, I've never taken anything like this before. So I'm only, I was diagnosed January of 2015, so I'm still fairly new.
And how have you been doing?
I got very excited because it seemed to be a very different combination of processes brought together. We've had a number of very informative guests on who all have their philosophies of what to do. And Keri seemed to be very practical and hands-on. Well, of course, she's a chiropractor, so a very hands-on kind of approach. I said, we've got to get her on. So do you sense it's a very practical program for you?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. She has posted like meditation audios and stuff on the Facebook page, which I've been using at bedtime and just fall asleep, no problem. So those have been very helpful. I haven't delved into the EFT stuff yet, but I understand that's next in our chapter anyway, so that's coming soon. Looking forward to that. Yeah, I've heard a lot about it, but I've never actually tried it. So, yeah.
Have you ever worked with a chiropractor, let alone a chiropractor neurologist? Is an interesting combo.
No. I saw a chiropractor years and years ago for my shoulder, but that was something totally different. So,
yeah.
I'm curious, the hospital you went to, was there a social worker that talked to you about the emotional aspect of your journey?
The Tom Baker, they have a social worker, but I used her services for financial means. But Calgary has an amazing support group. They have Wellspring Calgary, which they offer free classes to everybody. And then there's a Dr. Ardith Taylor who started the breast cancer supportive care group here in Calgary. And I've been seeing her for counseling. So she's been amazing as well. And that's also all free.
Okay,
yeah, Calgary has got some amazing programs going. They're sort of a model for things in Canada, and I know some U.S. Clinics are examining what the Tom Baker Center is doing because they're innovating. They've got a combination of researchers as well as practitioners, and they just have brand new programs, new approaches, and it's one of the places that many people actually will fly to rather than deal with their local center because of the kind of services at Tom Baker.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the the Wellspring Center and the Breast Cancer Supportive Care Center are totally separate of the Tom Baker. Like they don't even have anything to do with them. So, but they have all their brochures, you know, in the hospital and stuff, which is where I found all their stuff. So. Yeah.
Well, the United States has to catch up, I would say.
Well, I mean, you've got prestigious organizations for sure. I mean, you know, you go to Johns Hopkins, you're going to get an awful lot of good information. In Farber, a lot of great information. You know, Cancer Treatment Centers of America. There's a lot of groups that have different philosophies, and that's always been intriguing to me. Is that we all have issues, but the practitioners have their approach to dealing with it. And just like we're learning that Keri's approach is very different with what other people are doing, you have to do some research. And often you don't get directed by the psychosocial department at the cancer clinic. And so you've got to go searching on your own. And, you know, that's right. That's, you know, it's Healing Boobies. I've got to know what that's about. I mean, breast cancer is such a big issue. And there turned out not to be at all what I thought. It was a very unique kind of program. And certainly, you know, we like to endorse our guests when they come on and direct you to their services because they are spending a lot of time and effort developing very good programs. And we really want you to meet Keri, and get that free video program that she has is a good introduction to exactly what the program's all about. Anything more you'd like to say, Tina?
Nope, I'm good.
Well, I wish you nothing but good health.
Thank you.
Oh yes, you've got to recover, and I love it. You're in good hands with Keri. You see, it just sort of fits. That's right.
You should
put
be
your
her marketer.
brain in Keri's hands. I mean, it's going to be some model here that we've got to work with.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to clock out and see if anybody else wants to join your group.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Bye.
It's so great to have people drop in and join the conversation. It's such I love the platform. As long as it's working, it's a great platform, and you can meet people and talk about things in ways that you are surprised to do. And I'd certainly think we're at the top of the hour, so it's a good time to close out the recorded section. We can certainly carry on for a little bit longer, but the formal hour of recording is a good piece of information. So, Hayley, perhaps you could, summarize what you saw before we ask Keri for her final comments.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Dave, do you want to show the video? I know that you mentioned you wanted to show the video.
We'll show the video. Yep. And Hayley, any comments?
For some reason, I'm having trouble hearing a little bit. But yes, I think this was just a fabulous conversation, and I love what you're doing, Keri. And I love that there's so many health coaches now that are really helping people with cancer, because, and especially after treatment, because I think there's a gap there. And, I think there's a lot of people that are helping people during the cancer journey, which is so important, don't get me wrong. But like you said, when you finish, there's just all this anxiety because you're not in the constant care of your doctors anymore. And it's a very unsettling time. So I'm very happy that I got to meet you, and I love your work, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Keri's an official member of our extended family now.
Oh, good. I like that.
Of course. We'll have little certificates made up.
Yes.
Yes. And any final comments from you, Keri?
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I look forward to, meeting people on this journey and hoping to help them like I was helped myself, get our happy back. That's really what the goal is here, is to move forward and put, this chapter, this chapter is something that will always have shaped us, but we don't need to be defined by it. And, this can be something that happened to us that made us better, and our life can be better. It doesn't have to be. We'll never go back to who we were. We're a new person, and that's okay. And it can actually be even better. And that's one of the things I had said to Dave. A lot of people say, oh, well, you had breast cancer so young and you poor thing. But really, the thing is that having cancer younger really shaped my whole life. It shaped who I am as a mother now. So if I was going to have this experience, I'm almost grateful that it came earlier, so that I could really know what's important, and I could really, move forward in my life with, a different perspective than I could have ever imagined. So.
Well, we're grateful that you did what you did, and you're an inspiration. And that's what I love about the people we're meeting, is not only do they have good information to share, they've walked the path and understand exactly what we're all going through. So to, want to be of service, take a road of helping others is something I'm so grateful that I'm meeting them every week. And Keri, thank you very much for spending your time with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And do want everyone to look in the text chat for the links that Hayley has put in there to make sure that you've got access to it. And we're going to play the video that introduces the Healing Boobies program in just a second. The beta version of Blab doesn't record it, so we're going to just stop the recording and then play it so everyone in the audience can watch it. And we'll still be here to keep on the conversation if you want to keep discussing things and come on camera. I'd love to have you. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you and our audience. Without you, we wouldn't have a show. We're glad you come every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If you came to our pre-show, you found that we've got some interesting speakers lined up over the next few weeks, and I invite you all back for a variety of different topics, because we're trying to cover all of the issues, whether they are mobility or spirituality, nutrition, relationships, psychosocial. There are so many different issues that you have to run through after the treatment program is completed. And I think we'll be at this for years and years with topics as we bring wonderful people in. So again, thank you all for coming. I'm going to turn off the camera and invite you all back next week, and then we'll play the video and keep the conversation going. So see you all next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, and join us for another conversation on coping with cancer. We'll see you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.